Sometimes, God just does funky things like that. All right, we're in a series called "Give God a Chance." This is one of our core values, and this was actually the statement that birthed our church. And today I'm going to be talking about giving love a chance. And so every week I'm taking an aspect of who God is, one of the most core components of who Jesus is and who God is, and really unpacking that for us and challenging us as a church community to give God a specific chance when it comes to, well, today we're talking about love. So the passage is going to be John chapter 15, verses 9. I don't know if it's not working or not. Verses 9 and on. It says this: As the Father has loved me, so have I loved you. Now remain in my love. If you keep my commands, you'll remain in my love, just as I have kept my commands and remain in his love. I've told you this so that my joy may be in you and that your joy may be complete. My command is this: love each other as I've loved you. Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. Next verse. You are my friends if you do what I command. I no longer call you servants because a servant does not know his master's business. Instead, I have called you friends, for everything that I learned from my Father I have made known to you. You did not choose me, but I chose you and appointed you so that you might go and bear fruit that will last, so that whatever you ask in my name, the Father will give you. This is my command: love each other. Today I'm talking about giving love a chance. And today I pray and hope that you would give love a chance and give God a chance. And so my hope ultimately for today's talk and our time here today is that you would experience the love of God. That you would experience the love of God. If you are a Christian in this place, um, it's shockingly surprising for me to talk to many Christians and hear and see their testimonies and realize that they may know God's love in concept and in theory, but not in experience. Or if you had that experience a long time ago and you're a follower of Jesus, you just maybe have forgotten about it. It's like honey, right? I love good honey and honeycomb. It's delicious. And oftentimes when we talk about God, we talk about God as we talk about honey, as if you've never tasted honey yourself. But in theory, honey is sweet, but you've never actually tasted the sweetness yourself. Or maybe you've just forgotten about the sweetness, or haven't had a renewed experience in the sweetness of God's love. If you're not Christian or not a follower of Jesus, or you're just kind of not sure where you're at, or you're struggling with this kind of stuff, or you call yourself spiritual but not necessarily a follower of any type of religion, then you may not necessarily believe that a divine being loves you, cares for you, or even sees you. You may not even have that sort of framework in your mind. But even though you say, I don't believe in your honey, there's something in us that longs to taste the sweetness of it. Every single person, whether you're a follower of Jesus, whether you feel like you once followed Jesus, or you don't follow Jesus, we're all eager and longing to taste what that honey tastes like, either again or for the first time. And so today, my hope is that you would taste the sweet love of Jesus. Amen? Amen. That you would taste the sweet love of God, that it wouldn't just become theory or ideology, but that it would actually become an experience that births a new life, experience that allows us to walk in the way of Jesus. And so 3 things that I'm going to be talking about, the 3 points, is the example of love in this passage, the problem of love, and how to give love a chance. First, the example of love. When you look at this passage, Jesus, he does 2 interesting things with this passage. One, he uses the word agape for love. And second, he talks about the model of friendship. So first, he uses the word agape. In the Greek, there were different words for love. There's eros, there's phileo, there is agape. And it's the reason why those distinctions are there is because when Greeks talk about love, when you talk about loving your mom or loving pizza, those are 2 very different kinds of loves. When you talk about loving a person versus loving rice, which will make more sense as this message goes along. For some of you are like, nah, man, rice is better than any human love I've had in my life. Oh, my goodness, I struggle with that. You may be thinking it's a different kind of love. And so what the Greek language has done is it's created words, different words for love to distinguish and differentiate the different kinds of loves that we have for people, things, experiences, and so on. And so Jesus, he uses this word agape when he's speaking in this passage. And to give you guys some context of John 15 and John 13 and on, John 13 and on is the second half of the book of John. And it basically is like the glory phase of the book of John, where it's talking about Jesus preparing his disciples for the life after. Specifically, the life after when Jesus passes away. So he's sitting down with his disciples. You see a lot more interaction with him and his 12 disciples. There's a lot more conversation. There's a lot of Jesus talking and the prayers that he's praying for his disciples before it gets into the account of Jesus going to the cross. And so in this part of John, Jesus is specifically preparing his disciples for when he's about to leave, i.e. be crucified on the cross. And here, the word that he could have used any other word for love, but he uses the word agape specifically. Because the kind of love that Jesus is trying to set, he's setting a new ethic for love in human society and in this world. And it's interesting because that word agape, it conveys a sense of action. You see, the Greeks here in this moment, they couldn't separate love and action when it comes to that word agape. And more specifically, when he uses the word agape, it's a word that is about seeking people's well-being without seeking anything in return. It's a genuine, selfless kind of love. That when you give, you actually expect nothing in return, expect nothing back, not even a thank you. Agape even goes to the extent as far as an enemy embracing love. And so Jesus, when he's talking about love, it's a unique kind of love. It's a unique teaching. This word agape is a unique kind of relational dynamic that Jesus is trying to teach and preach to his disciples, that saying, this is the kind of love that I want you to embrace, embody, and share with the rest of the world. And it just so coincidentally, John 13 starts with the account of Jesus washing his disciples' feet, an act that not even a slave could even be considered worthy of doing. It was for people lower than slaves. But Jesus, he's talking about a unique love, a love that is self-sacrificial, a love that is not mutually beneficial, but actually comes at great cost to the person giving the love. He's talking about a love that is actually very foreign to Greco-Roman culture. So when you look at this, the second interesting part is that Jesus uses the model and the example of friendship. And for some of us that may not be interesting, but if you actually study a little bit about what Greco-Roman friendships looked like back then, they were the complete opposite of agape. They were self-seeking. They were for personal benefit. You only got into relationship with someone when you could benefit them and they could benefit you. It was more of a system of patronage than it was an actual genuine self-sacrificial love. It wasn't a self-giving, it was more of a give and a take. So Greco-Roman friendships and relationships, it was more of a system of patronage. There were social contracts, not literally written out, but in expectation. There was exchanges of gifts, whether they were physical, tangible, or intangible. There was ways for people to recognize, oh, I am friends with this person. I am friends with that person. They literally would have tokens walking around with them to signify I'm in a relationship with this person. It got to the extent where some people of lower class would not even try to begin relationships or friendships with people of higher class because they literally had nothing to offer. They had nothing to offer. You know, Jesus, in that parable in the story where he talks about the parable of the feast, when he says, go invite everyone and bring everyone. He doesn't use the word invite. He literally says, bring them off the streets and tell them to come in. Why does he use that language? Because he says, they have nothing to offer. So they themselves would never walk into the feast themselves. They have to be brought in. They have to literally be dragged into the kingdom. And so Greco-Roman friendship and the social dynamics and social relationships at play, it was literally the opposite of what agape is. And if you think about and examine just even how we view social dynamics and relationships today, it's not that far off from ancient Greco-Roman culture. Yeah, we don't carry around tokens saying, oh, I'm friends with this person, but we do name drop, right? We do name drop. You know what I name drop all the time? Odell Beckham Jr. Never met the man in my life, but I was at the game when he caught the pass. So what do? When I'm talking to other Giants fans, I tell them, I was at the game. Me and OBJ, we're kind of like that. I name drop his name all the time. He doesn't know me. I have nothing to give to his life, but I will still name drop. We don't carry around physical tokens, but we'll name drop. We have social contracts with one another. Oftentimes, friendships in our culture is about people who are like you and people who like you. We're looking for people who are like us, whether it's in demographic, age, experience, race, gender, and so on. And we're looking for people who like us, people who care about us. And I'm not saying that that's particularly bad or wrong. I'm just saying that's just how it is. And I'm saying that that's not that far off from Greco-Roman friendships in ancient society. But what I am saying is that the idea of agape love is unique in any society. In any society for social dynamics and relationships, the idea of self-sacrificial love, a self-giving love, an enemy-embracing kind of love is unique in any society. Friendships back then and even now had to be mutually beneficial. There had to be an exchange. Whether it's today or ancient Greeks, there had to be a mutually beneficial relationship or exchange in these relationships. But Jesus, he was calling for a new ethic, a new way of love. And that way of love wasn't defined by who is like me and who likes me, but the way of love was anybody and everybody, I'll give myself completely in love to them. It was a self-sacrifice. Jesus says, my command is this, love each other as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. He's giving a new perspective, a new way of how friendships can be. And so look at what Jesus does. He doesn't rid the idea of friendship. He doesn't just throw it away and say, okay, we got to get rid of all friendships. You can't have friends. This is just not how it's going to work. It's all about just me and the cross. No, what does he do? He redefines friendship. He says, the world says friendship is about mutual benefit exchange. But Jesus says, my friendship is about a self-sacrificial giving. The world's friendship is a patronage system. But my friendship is an offering. It's just something that I give on to you. It's just something that you are called to receive. So for Jesus, friendship is no longer about self-seeking. It's no longer about a self-seeking kind of love, but the agape love is a self-sacrificial love, a love that is not looking for who is like you and who likes you, but one that comes at great cost to you. Jesus is giving a new way of friendship, and friendship to him is a friendship that comes at great cost to us. I remember my friend in elementary school. This may sound traumatic, and it kind of is, but don't worry, I'm all right. Let's just laugh about it. I remember in elementary school, one of my good friends and I, we were getting into a little bit of a tiff, an argument. And I don't know what like elementary kids fight about anymore, but I remember me and him, I don't even know what we were fighting about. We were just having a back and forth argument. And then eventually he just got low. He just went deep. And I'll be honest, it was probably my fault in this argument. But I remember my friend, he looked at me and he was like, Dave, I have to tell you, no one wants you at this birthday party, at my birthday party. And I'm just like, what? What are you talking about? I hate you, man. And he's like, no one wants you at this birthday party because no one thinks you're cool. But I think you're cool. And so you're my friend, and I want you at this birthday party. That's what I do for you. Now that I think about it and talk about it out loud, it's kind of sad. But when you really think about just the dynamics of that, this elementary kid was willing to sacrifice his reputation, was willing to sacrifice his birthday party for a non-cool kid like me to come. Nowadays, everyone's just getting canceled, ghosted, right? I heard how social dynamics work in teenage worlds. It's scary. I wouldn't be able to survive the social landscape of how teenagers are working. So God bless you teenagers and all the parents who have teenagers. It is a minefield out there. But people just get ghosted. But at least this kid, he had the courage to tell me, hey, no one wants you. No one thinks you're cool, but I think you're cool. And so I'm putting my neck on the line by inviting you to this party. The conversation ended pretty quick there. You see, the agape love that Jesus is talking about is more closer to that it costs you something. That it's not a mutually beneficial thing. One side has to pay gravely for this love. And you know, the problem, which brings me to my next point, with this kind of love is actually not that it costs greatly. The problem with this kind of love is not the cost. You know what the problem is? The problem with this kind of love is that we're all looking for it, but can never seem to find it. Everyone is looking for love, this kind of love, the self-sacrificing kind of love, the kind of love when someone's willing to lay down their life for you. Everyone's looking for that kind of love. And it's not just a romantic thing. It's not just about like interpersonal relationships, but it could even be in your career. It could be with your life. You're looking for something that you could be passionate about and something that you can love doing. It could be with your friends and community. You're looking for places where you can feel like you belong and feel safe in people who are like you and people who like you. Even churches. We treat that with churches all the time. Looking for people who are like us and people who like us. The problem with the agape kind of love is we are, as human beings, it's written in our code to look for this kind of love. The kind of love that sacrifices dearly. The kind of love that costs someone something greatly. And keep in mind, I'm not talking about like the toxic, romantic kind of relationships love. I'm sure some people have been in this place and may have talked to someone in your life where you're like, that person just says, you know, like I've given this person everything. I gave them everything. I did whatever that they wanted to do, and I just got left broken. I'm not talking about that kind of love. That's not agape love. But I'm talking about the kind of love that soldiers share in a foxhole. In my life, I've talked to enough military people. I don't know how, but they just like find me. And I just talk to Marines. I've talked to people from West Point. I've talked to reserves. I've talked to all levels of military individuals. And one thing unanimously, for those who've actually experienced combat, one thing that they tell me over and over again is that when they're fighting and they're in the foxhole, they're not fighting for nation. They're not even fighting for their particular brand of the military, whether it's Navy, Army. I know we do that in the football field, in a game. But they're not fighting for their particular arm or branch of the army. You know who they're fighting for? They're fighting for one another. They're literally laying down their lives for their brothers and their sisters in the foxhole. They're not doing it for their country. They're doing it for each other. And when you see that, and people who've lost their lives for that, and when we see that, we look at that, it's almost like this honor. They come back with a hero's welcome. They're greeted with the flag, with a whole platoon of people to celebrate this person and to mourn this person's death. It's such an honor when someone is willing to lay down their life for another person. It's beautiful. And we're all looking for it. And that's the problem. We're looking for that kind of love. The kind of love that can only be shared in a foxhole. And we think love is about desire. No, that's more so lust. You see, this is kind of more of a side note. I believe love comes at the point, love starts at the point of disagreement. Married folks, you know, marriage is basically just a lifelong sentence of you not getting what you want. That's kind of basically what it is, right? Right? Robert's looking around. Marriage is a lifelong sentence of you not getting what you want. If you are going at that person, if you're looking at that person standing there on the vows, doing your vows with that couple, I had the privilege of doing Tim and Marilyn's wedding. Came to give them a round of applause a while ago, and the one thing you don't want to hear in the exchange of vows is, my friend or my lover, you are the fulfillment of my life. All my hopes and dreams are in you. I can't wait for you to give me everything that I want. My goodness, you're in for a rude awakening. You're in for a rude awakening. And even though you don't say that, that's oftentimes the spirit and how we view interpersonal and romantic relationships. Just examining and measuring, how can this person give me what I want? When marriage really is just a lifelong sentence of you not getting what you want. And guess what? You can still be happy. It's like, it's possible for you to be happy, fulfilled, and driven with mission and vision and calling and not get what you want. My friends, that's called agape. That's called agape. That kind of love, the problem with it is that we're all looking for it but can never seem to find it. We're all hoping for it, dreaming for it, but for some reason it's never there. It's elusive. It's just always just misses our grasp and our grip. But we're all looking for that kind of love, the kind of love where we ask ourselves, does someone have my back? The questions that we ask of, am I alone in this life? Or the questions of, will anyone cover me? And yeah, in this physical existence, those questions are important. But have you ever asked those questions on a cosmic level? If you don't believe in an afterlife, then don't worry. You don't need to listen to this part. But if you do, and if you're kind of confused about it, this is some serious stuff that we need to wrestle with. Have you ever asked the question of, who has my back after I leave this planet Earth? Does anyone cover me? Will anyone protect me? Am I doing this alone? And you know, the world's script really has no answer for that. World philosophy, secular philosophy has no good answer for that. All that stuff literally leads to just kind of this nihilism where it's like everything's hopeless, nothing matters. And then you get a bunch of young people screaming YOLO because they think that this is the only life you can. Do people still say YOLO? Right? Do they? I don't think so. Right? All like the people who are a little bit older in this room, they're like, yeah, man, we still say it. But all the younger people, they're like, what is that? You're so old. Oh, you're a boomer, right? No, have you ever asked that on a cosmic, divine level of, does someone have my back in eternity? Jesus provides the only viable option for that. Other world religions, other spaces require works and effort, require you to be a good person. But if you ever thought about, what if you're like a C+ good person? Do you get counted out of heaven and eternal bliss because of that? Jesus throws that system out of the water and says, it's about you loving me because the Father loves me and I love you. And it's this reciprocation of love that we're all called to do. It's just called to love him back. And so have you ever asked yourself the question of, does anyone have my back cosmically, eternally? Or am I just doing this alone? If you don't have a good answer, then maybe Jesus is it. If you don't have a good response to that question, then maybe, just maybe, Jesus is the one thing that you need to explore. Maybe Jesus is the one person you need to give a chance on. Hence, give love and God a chance. So the problem of this kind of love can be summed up, I believe, according to St. Augustine. And he says this: we are not deficient in love, but we are filled with deficient loves. I mean, he uses the word disordered loves, but I think deficient's better, so I've kind of changed it around a little bit. St. Augustine x Dave Cho collab, right? Yeah, right? We love good collabs. We are not deficient in love, but we are filled with deficient loves. We're filled with deficient loves. It's like when you want honey, but you get stevia. Stevia? I don't even know. Never tried it in my life. Never will. It's like you want milk and you go to the spout at like a restaurant or something, or I don't know, wherever, at a retreat, and you pull it out, and all of a sudden you see the milk coming out, and you know it's a little too translucent for it to be real milk. And it's just skim. It's milk pretending to be milk. Right? Whole milk all the way, my friends. We get filled with deficient, disordered loves. And so the crisis that we're facing is not the lack of love. You may be looking for it and you may have never found it. But let me tell you, the crisis is not a lack of love in this world. God's love is in this world. There's no lack of it. It's not the lack, but maybe we're just filled with deficient and disordered versions of it. Rather than the real honey and sugarcane, we're filled with NutraSweet and stevia. Rather than real food and nutrition, we're filled with the fake stuff. What deficient loves have you become filled with today? What deficient loves have you become filled with today? And it doesn't mean you desire it, but it just means it has your attention and it has your dependence. That's all it needs. Your job, your family, your relationships. I'll be honest, there is a part of me that has such a love for my kids that I know still, even though to me I love them, they're sweet. I'll never say my children are perfect because then I'd just be lying, right? Nothing's perfect, but even I know that even in that, it's a deficient love. But for me to put my sense of worth and identity in that, it would be me putting my identity and worth in a deficient, disordered love. What deficient loves are you filled with today? It doesn't mean you desire it. It just means you depend on it. It just means it has your attention. And so lastly, when you give love a chance, when you give agape love a chance, it doesn't start with you just saying, okay, God, I'm here, love on me. It may, but oftentimes it doesn't start with that. What it starts with is us identifying and weaning off of deficient loves that we've had in our life. We need to probably go through a spiritual elimination diet. What is that? Praise team, you guys can come up. For the past couple of weeks, I've been doing this like physical food elimination diet. Not because it was like doctor recommended. It was just probably a reckless thing that I'm doing for myself. But I kind of wanted to know, okay, how does my body react to certain types of foods? You know, I just was tired of being tired. I want to lose weight. I want to get in better shape. I want to have more energy when I exercise and more energy when I go to jiu-jitsu. I want to have more energy for my kids. So I was like, all right, let me just try this out. Let me do an elimination diet. For the first week, I just focused on eating just eggs and meat. That's it. Eggs, meat, and salt. And let me tell you, the first couple days, my goodness, I felt like I was in withdrawal. Like first day it was kind of rough. First day was okay, but then it started getting a little bit worse, and you're kind of wondering, just like, like it's not hard. I know I had the determination just to last a week for it, but the first couple days were tough, and then after that, man, I started feeling good. My sleep got better. My energy was up. I was actually winning in jiu-jitsu. I actually submitted people, y'all. I've been doing this for 6 years. Oh my gosh. And I felt great. And then slowly I would introduce just kind of one thing after another. And you know what I realized after I introduced certain ingredients into my palate? I realized how much my life was dependent on this one ingredient. My wife and I, we kind of have this running joke between us now where it's just 2 words. And it's called rice power. I never realized how much of my physical, biological GDP was propped up by rice power. Oh my goodness. Like, I would eat so much rice. So much. I love rice. And by the 5th day of my elimination diet, I wasn't craving sugars. I wasn't craving candies. The only thing I would crave is a hot, steamy bowl of rice. Oh my goodness. When the rice thing would just pop open and you just smell the room emanates with that steamed rice. My goodness, it was euphoric. And then what ended up happening? I would introduce rice back into my diet. And all of a sudden, I'd get the energy would be zapped out of me. And don't get me wrong, I'm not against carbs. Carbs are not the enemy. I'm against the amount of rice I would consume. Ungodly, like enough for a small village in Korea, right? Like, that's how much. And so I never realized how much of the capital of my body was propped up, dependent on a deficient nutrient of rice. I never realized how much it would zap my energy, how much it would cost me on a daily basis to eat the amount of rice that I ate. I just thought, carbo load every day, all day. But little did I realize, I lost 7 pounds in 5 days because I just took out rice from my diet. Yeah, I was like Andy Dwyer in Parks and Rec, right? I just stopped eating rice and I lost 7 pounds instantly. And so when we think about love, let's not start at the place of, all right, God, love on me. When you give love a chance, it's not you just saying, all right, God, prove it. What it starts with an elimination diet, a spiritual elimination diet of the deficient loves that we've been so propped up on. And for some of us, it may hurt. You may actually have a physical reaction to withdrawing from some of these deficient loves. But you'll realize how much you were dependent on these deficient loves, these disordered loves, how much you needed your career, your spouse, your children to feel a sense of self-worth, how much you needed even just other people. When Jesus, he gives the only viable option in this world for a soul looking for love, a soul seeking that kind of self-sacrificing kind of love, the kind of love that every single person in this world and in this room is looking for. Jesus gives the only viable option. And his social contract is one condition. It's one command, and it says that all you need to do when it comes to loving me is love each other. We think that's the second greatest commandment. No, if you actually read it in its original language, it's combined, it's fused, that actually loving one another is on the equivalent to loving God. And loving God means you love one another. You can't dissect it and slice it and dice it. They come together. And so the love that everyone is looking for, the unconditional, the self-sacrificing, the kind of love where you know that the other person paid deeply for it, a fellow comrade in a foxhole, that kind of love to lay down your life. Only Jesus offers that. So what did Jesus do? He made himself nothing in the form of a man, in the form of a servant, and came down and he called you friend. The disciples never called Jesus friend. The disciples were here in power dynamic, and Jesus was up here. And he said, me calling you friend means that now, cosmically, you're here with me. Every other friendship and relationship and every other social contract out there in the world, if there's this dynamic, somehow we have to work our way up and earn our way to be at that level. But Jesus, he looks at his disciples and he says, no, you're my friend. Folks, today, Jesus looks at you and he calls you friend. He calls you friend. And all you have to do is just respond and reciprocate that love. For some of us, we're looking for that love, that unconditional, self-sacrificial love. But little do you realize that that love, that kind of love, can only be found in Jesus. We've been propped up by all these deficient loves. Maybe, just maybe, today, we have to give love a chance, agape love a chance. Let's worship. Can we all stand?